Okay, so another version of the Spitfire. This one is a Mark 16. Now you remember I told you that the three iconic versions of the Spitfire, the 1, the 5 and the Mark 9. This actually is a close relation to the Mark 9. The only difference between this and a Mark 9 version of the Spitfire is the engine that powers it. It's powered by a Merlin engine, exactly the same as those other three aircraft, those other three versions. The only difference is that, this Merlin was built by Packard in the United States. They built a large number, well over 50,000 Merlins were built by Packard in the United States because we needed them. So that was just in order to keep up the number of Merlins that we actually needed to use during the war. So that was the only difference between this one and a Mark 9. However, if you saw this next to our Mark 9, which we have, you would notice that there are some differences. The first difference would be the fact that it's got these squared off wing tips. They're not pointed as on all the other Spitfires that we have. These were what were known as clip wing Spitfires. And they took off around about 2 feet off the end of each wing tip. And that was in order to give the aeroplane a bit more manoeuvrability when it was down at low level, which is where it was intended to be used. It also had the benefit of giving it a few more miles an hour of speed. The other difference is
this the one that flew over running evenly with
the
the
cockpit canopy is what's known as a bubble or a teardrop canopy. It's not fed into the fuselage as on all the other Spitfires that you see in here. It sits proud on top of the aeroplane, so it gives the pilot 360-degree vision. Now that's very good, because most fighter pilots that were shot down during the war never saw their enemy. All this tales you hear about the chivalry of fighter pilots, forget it. None of them were chivalrous. They used to sneak up behind you, down underneath you, so that you had little chance of being able to see them. Generally, they would approach you from underneath and to the right, because flying the aeroplane, you're holding the control column with your right hand. So the easiest way to look is to your left. So they sneak up and down. So it's not chivalrous like you see in the stories and the films. There were occasions when there were chivalrous, but we won't bother with that now. So those are the only three differences between this and a normal Mark 9. However, as I said, this is very closely related to the Mark 9, and you can get one of these which looks exactly the same as all the other Spitfires that we've got here. Pointed wingtips, cockpit fed into the fuselage, and you get a Mark 9 which looks exactly the same as this. So the only way you can tell these two versions of the Spitfire apart is if you actually know what engine is sitting in the front of the aeroplane. Now this particular one, all black, so you might think, oh, night fighter. No. As I said earlier, regularly the aircraft goes through a repaint. This is prime. The aeroplane is eventually going to go off to be repainted, they keep saying. It's been like this for about 3 months now. They're waiting for somebody to actually sign on the dotted line. So eventually it's going to go off to be repainted, and when it comes back it's going to be repainted as the aircraft of a Polish pilot by the name of Stefan Gapczewicz. Try and say that before. So he was the commanding officer of number 131 wing, which comprised of a number of Polish squadrons in 131 wing. Very famous Polish fighter pilot during the war. People like the Poles and the Czechs were particularly aggressive fighter pilots, and you can understand why, because the Germans had done unspeakable things in those countries, so they were particularly aggressive, especially during the Battle of Britain. They were particularly eager to get at the Germans. So eventually it's coming back painted up in the markings of his airplane. Now this particular aeroplane, it actually came here as a pair of Mark 16s. They had been going up and down the country for a large number of years, going to various events, being displayed to the public. When they came here, they were intended to be used as spares. The other one was, when they took a close look at this aeroplane, they thought, well, we can restore that and make it fly. And they did that over a period of around about 11 years or so. Initially that was done by the ground crews, doing it on a voluntary basis, so they were giving up their spare time in order to work on the aeroplane until eventually it was taken on charge by the RAF, so they started paying money for it. And that all came to fruition in October of 2012, and the aeroplane took to the air on its first test flight, and that was the first time it had flown in 58 years. So a nice little sight to see air shows now. So that's the end of that one. One more Spitfire. That's the last.